Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone breaking down the latest commitment for the Crimson Tide. This time it's JC Latham, gigantic commitment for the Crimson Tide here with Andrew Bone to break it all down. Commitment number 7 in Andrew. I mean, Alabama fans have to be excited about this commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. JC Latham, a member of the Rivals 100, and many will argue he's a five-star recruit, and he's not a five-star in Rivals, but he's very highly rated. And I think a lot of that has to do with him only playing offensive line for 1 year. I think that he had a great season, great junior season as an offensive lineman. Has been a defensive lineman throughout his career, but made the switch to offensive line. Really starting to develop there and really learn the position. He had a great junior season, like I mentioned. You go back and watch his highlight film, and you're just so impressed with the way he moves, the way he comes off the ball, the way that he can extend his arms. I mean, he's got great footwork. And I think his best days are certainly ahead of him. I talked to Mike Farrell the other day, who thinks that he could really blow up, after this upcoming football season, and really cement himself as a five-star recruit. But like I said, I think the biggest thing is just the fact that he wasn't really able to camp, go to a lot of places during the spring, during the COVID, so a lot of people didn't get a chance to really see him. But I think his stock is going to continue to soar. This is a big commitment because this is a guy that everybody had leaning towards Ohio State for the longest time. That Alabama was just on the outside, and I would say probably Alabama was probably outside his top 4, top 5, probably I would say 5 months ago. And in the last 5 months, Alabama has just continued to hammer away, continued to do a great job recruiting him, led by Kyle Flood. Charles Huff also recruiting IMG Academy. Those guys have just did a tremendous job recruiting JC Latham and staying in contact with him. And Alabama just continued to move up on his list. It went from Alabama being outside the top 5 to all of a sudden Alabama was considered a top 2 contender for him. And it looked like it really kind of came down between Alabama, LSU, and Ohio State. But like I said, for the last few months, everybody just assumed he was going to Ohio State, and today he announced for Alabama.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because, I mean, you talked about it, maybe a month ago. You said, watch out for JC Latham, and it looked like he was an Ohio State lean. You mentioned LSU. Today he commits to Alabama in a gigantic pickup, in my opinion. First offensive lineman added to this class. When you look at the overall numbers, everybody wants to know the numbers, but it's almost impossible. But can you talk about how many linemen that could be in this particular class? Is it a need of extreme importance? What's your take on the overall offensive line? And this has to catapult that offensive line group.
Yeah, well, you're looking at the numbers overall. I think Alabama really needs to get 5 offensive linemen in this year's recruiting class, and you really need to get. You can't just say, all right, we're going to go after maybe 1 5-star, and then the rest just let's get 3 stars. You want to get the best players you can possibly get, and you go after you're going after so many top guys, you're going to get a couple of those guys, or at least one of them. And the first one to jump on board is JC Latham. So who's going to be next? Is it going to be the Brockemeyer twins? Can they go into the state of Georgia and potentially land Amarius Mims or Terrence Ferguson? You really have to. This is the jump start of it. This is the first guy that jumps on board in JC Latham. So who's next? We're just not sure. But I think that Alabama's sitting in pretty good shape right now with the Brockemeyer twins. Even though they're probably not going to decide anytime soon, they're wanting to wait a little bit longer. Of course, still recruiting the guys in the state of Georgia. There's some other guys that are out there that they're heavily recruiting, that they're heavily involved in, that they could potentially land. But this is a monumental commitment in this class, because I think this is a guy that is eventually going to end up being rated as a 5-star recruit. He's going to be rated as one of the top he's already rated as one of the top overall players in the country, but his stock's going to continue to rise, and it's a huge commitment. I'm sure the Alabama coaching staff's extremely excited, because you look at the recruiting battles that Alabama's been going. They're going up against Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, a lot of these top programs. So when you go up against Ohio State, you win a big recruiting battle against them. For a top recruit that seemed to be leaning towards Ohio State throughout his entire recruitment, it really gives a little bit of momentum to Alabama's recruiting class.
What I like about JC Latham in this recruitment process is the fact that he's coming from IMG. I mean, Alabama continues to keep the IMG as a strong pipeline. I mean, you look at the guys contributing that should contribute in 2020. You got Evan Neal, who started every game last year as a freshman. You have Trey Sanders. A lot of people expect, the world from him. Dylan Moses. I mean, talk about the importance of just making sure that the IMG is a stronghold for Alabama. I mean, Nick Saban continues to make sure the best from the IMG are going to Alabama.
Yeah, it's obviously a great football program, and they bring in players from all over the country, and most of those players, a lot of them have been recruited for a year or so before they even get there. But then, once they get there, they're playing up against top competition every single week, and they're getting world-class coaching, high school coaching down there. It's certainly a tremendous program, and Alabama's really benefited a lot. You mentioned some of the guys. You also have Stephon Wynn, defensive lineman. Thomas Fletcher, who's a starting long snapper. I mean, got a lot of guys from the program who have gone on to Alabama and had success, and I think they're going to continue to hit that program for a long time to come.
Bone, and you talked about it a little bit more. I mean, you talked about Brockemeyer, potentially the twins. You talked about Marius Mintz. I mean, think about the offensive linemen that could potentially join this class. I mean, Alabama right now in the mid-30s in the Rivals.com recruiting rankings. But, I mean, you're looking at a future explosion if things continue to go right for Alabama. Everybody's been worried about Alabama. They were sitting at 70 a couple months ago. But, I mean, tons of momentum for Alabama as we enter the summer months, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, Alabama's trying to get at least 5 offensive linemen in this year's class, and they'd love for in a perfect world, they'd love for all those guys to be 5-star recruits, and they're recruiting some top level guys, obviously, and I think they've got a great chance, like I mentioned with the Brockemeyer twins. You still kind of you're really hitting on those Georgia guys, Terrence Ferguson and Amarius Mims, but if you miss on those guys, but you get JC Latham, you get Tommy Brockemeyer, as your 2 big-time tackles in this class, that's a special recruiting class.
Yeah, all right. So for more on JC Latham and for more Alabama recruiting coverage, go to BamaInsider.com. To join the website, the free promo code is simply Roll Tide. Big-time commitment today with JC Latham headed to Alabama. Gigantic commitment. For more recruiting coverage, of course, follow Andrew Bone. But all the coverage back at BamaInsider.com. For Andrew Bone, Kyle Henderson, we'll catch you next time at BamaInsider.com.